This week on Africa Weekly, we follow a Togolese protester who travels from Benin every week to join in demonstrations calling for President Faure Gnassingbé to step down. We go behind the scenes of South Africa's fledgling textile industry, and we visit Sao Tome and Principe's celebrity chef, who's cooking up a plan to draw tourists to the tiny archipelago. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. The race for the leadership of South Africa's ruling ANC party is finally over, with former Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa announced as the winner.
President Zuma, one has been accustomed to you closing conferences of the ANC on a number of occasions, and I feel like I'm walking in your shoes tonight.
Ramaphosa's maiden speech touched on the contentious issue of corruption, which has plagued President Jacob Zuma's reign, as he called for unity and an end to what he called a vested interest in politics. But he only narrowly won the vote against rival Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a former African Union Commission chair and the president's ex-wife. The victorious Ramaphosa will go on to contest presidential elections in 2019. In his first State of the Nation address, Zimbabwe's new president Emmerson Mnangagwa vowed to attract investment and revive the country's ailing economy.
Zimbabwe is open for business.
Under Robert Mugabe, the key agriculture sector collapsed and hyperinflation swiped out savings. But the new leader says he will introduce pro-business policies and that his priority is to boost economic growth and fight corruption. A 53-year-old grocer from Niger is accused of a premeditated knife attack on a Danish couple at a popular tourist market in Gabon. According to prosecutors, he had been stalking the pair, who were in the country filming for the National Geographic. The suspect has allegedly admitted to acting in retaliation for US attacks against Muslims and America's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. It is not yet clear if he was acting alone or for a group. Former Ivorian minister Hubert Ulai went on trial on Monday for his alleged role in the death of 15 people in 2012. 7 Nigerian UN peacekeepers and 8 civilians were killed in the assault near Guillo in western Ivory Coast. Ulai, who used to be the right-hand man of ousted President Laurent Gbagbo, is accused of using intermediaries to provide more than $5,000 for weapons for the men who carried out the attack. He has already served more than 2 years in preventative detention. His lawyers claim the charges are baseless and aimed at stirring tensions within Gbagbo's old party. A Tunisian LGBT group has launched what's believed to be the Arab world's first online radio station catering for the lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community. Shams, the group behind the move, say they aim to tackle deep-rooted hostility in the North African state, where homosexuality is officially illegal. Despite already receiving death threats, they plan to cover political, economic and social issues, but with a focus on the LGBT community. Homosexuality is currently punishable by up to 3 years in prison in Tunisia's penal code, and young men are regularly detained and prosecuted.
It's early morning in Cotonou, Benin. Pedro is looking for a minibus to reach Lomé, capital of neighbouring Togo, his home country. Since August, protests have gripped Togo, calling for President Faure Gnassingbé to step down. And most weeks, Pedro spends €10 to cross the border and join in.
Every time there's a demonstration, I always attend it, and I never miss one. Even we Togolese want to be free, like the other countries in the region. Democracy? There's no democracy in Togo.
The Gnassingbé dynasty has ruled the West African nation for half a century. Now a coalition of opposition groups are calling for 2-term limits for presidents, applied retroactively to prevent Gnassingbé from contesting the 2020 and 2025 elections. Gnassingbé has promised to open talks, but has so far remained quiet. Meanwhile, security forces are cracking down on protests with violence. Pedro lost a friend in clashes with police in October, but it hasn't discouraged him.
After August the 19th, some people were killed. Some others were wounded with bullets, tear gas and hot water. It's not easy. I'm not scared. If I was, I wouldn't be going every time. But you have to be brave.
Crossing the border between Benin and Togo is not always easy. Customs officers usually distrust travellers when protests are underway. When Pedro finally reaches Lomé, he changes his clothes to wear red, the colour of the opposition Pan-African Democratic Party.
We want the resignation and the liberation of the political prisoners. We also want the constitution from 1992 to be restored. This is why we are here, and there are loads of us here. This isn't for fun.
After several hours of marching, the tens of thousands of demonstrators make their way home. Pedro knows his family fears for his safety, but he won't stop the fight until political change is in sight.
He's been in the clothing industry for over 50 years and now he owns this Cape Town garment factory. But for Christopher Kinross, staying open is a fight. He's battling cheap Chinese imports from one side and international fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M on the other.
So every time you go into a Zara store, there's something new for you. So they attract the customer back again and again and again. And that's the secret. So we've tried to develop ourselves to be a Zara-type supplier.
Smuggling is another challenge. The Clothing and Textile Workers Union estimates almost half of all clothes are imported illegally to avoid taxes. And in the last 20 years, the industry shed around 2/3 of jobs. But in an effort to stem the tide, the government has been offering grants and loans.
For much of the last 5 years, we've seen a radical reduction in job losses. Okay, so where we used to lose something like 15,000 jobs a year, we started losing around 2,000 jobs a year. Okay, and that for us was the beginning of a tentative turnaround.
Foreign investment is also key, but international companies often go to poorer countries like Lesotho or Madagascar, where labour costs are lower.
Any country always welcomes outside investment because it grows the cake. Our problem is we've got a high unemployment rate, we need to grow the cake.
There are signs of recovery. Czech textile company Pegas Nonwovens has announced plans to build a $74 million factory. With unemployment approaching 30%, South Africa needs all the help it can get for its clothing industry and the country.
This coffee plantation turned restaurant is home to celebrity chef João Carlos Silva. He opened the restaurant more than 20 years ago on his native island of Sao Tome and has only ever served organic ingredients.
There are no chemicals used here and a lot of products in Sao Tome and Principe are organic.
The son of a Santomean cook, Silva has quickly made a name for himself in the island nation. His cooking has even made him a star on Portuguese television. Most people outside Portugal have never heard of this tiny former colony, but Silva is on a mission to change that through his food. Silva is passionate about using only the finest ingredients. He grows many of his own products, combining them with top-quality imports to concoct a truly seductive menu.
I didn't expect a chief or a guy like him here in Sao Tome, but it's absolutely great that he is here because everybody knows him, and for tourists it's, I guess, a good occasion to have this type of food.
Known as the Chocolate Islands for the quality of its cocoa, Sao Tome and Principe is heavily reliant on foreign aid, but increasingly tourism revenue too. And Silva is on a mission to put his country on the map, advocating a smarter tourism that's both cultural and ecological.
South Africa's Lipizzaner horses wowed audiences this week in their annual festive season performance. The oldest human-bred horse in the world, these powerful mares, originally used on the battlefield, are now known for a gentler show of prowess, equine ballet. Next week, we take a closer look at the rise in farm murders in South Africa and the farmers who refuse to be cowed by fear. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.